We're live. I wanted to do an addendum on the semaglutide. Um, normally I will do research and I'll compile the research and I'll just present the research I found. However, I think the research on semaglutide is wrong. The reason I say that is because it makes some very, very specific instances about how it increases insulin and allows insulin to function better in the body. And I don't think that's what it does. The reason I don't think that's what it does is because it helps diabetics, and diabetics' main issue is not that they don't produce insulin, it's that they have insulin resistance. The body is not utilizing insulin the way it's supposed to. The receptor function is degraded or damaged or not working. It also is glucagon, and so glucagon helps the body to produce sugar. It's one of its main purposes. It uses fat, it creates energy, it creates glucose out of protein using fat as a fuel source. That's how you lose weight, is because you're using the fat to produce your own sugar out of proteins, which is also why you'll see people who are on semaglutide lose a lot of muscle mass. The indications that's there and the function of the body leads me to believe that it actually inhibits the body's ability to absorb carbohydrate function. So if you eat sugars, it no longer absorbs them. And the reason for this is if you look where the receptor sites in the body are, one is in the brain stem. The brain stem is obviously there to make sure that the brain and the blood have enough glucose to function, the autonomic nervous system. Same area that's responsible for breathing and for everything else that keeps your body functioning on a regular basis. So that's going to be one of those places that it's going to start working, and it's going to change the autonomic function. The other place we have receptors is in the gut. Now, we see a lot of gastroenteritis, so basically gastroparesis. So basically it's paralysis of the gut. We see a bunch of the gut just stopping doing what it's doing. Gastric emptying decreases, nutrient absorption decreases. Remember, the entire point of glucagon is to make sugar for the body. Now, insulin's the storage hormone. And so what we don't want to have happen is your body starts producing sugar, and then your body then starts storing it instead of using it for the blood and for the brain like it was designed for. A lot of this happens because the body will go through this process, and glycogen will be released from the liver into the blood to stabilize and maintain blood levels. And then your body will use the gluconeogenesis function of the liver to restore the glycogen that's in the liver. And that's kind of how the system works. It would be a massive monkey wrench in this whole thing if you then dumped a whole bunch of sugar into the system when you've now suppressed insulin function, because glucagon suppresses insulin. I think the reason that it's helping diabetics is because it completely takes over for you sugar-wise. And so what ends up happening, same thing with fasting, same thing with ketogenesis, which is why I use keto to fix diabetes, because keto induces this exact same protocol. So your body makes its own sugar, increasing glucagon, suppressing insulin. And so that's where I'm thinking a lot of this is coming out. So the problem we're getting into, like I said, is that I think a lot of people are being overdosed on it, which is causing major gastroparesis issues, which is causing the gallstone issues, which is causing everything else. So if that's actually the way it works, is that it blocks the body's ability to absorb carbohydrate function and thus sugars, so your body can make its own and fuel itself on its own. That would be the way that this thing is, the actual mechanics of this happens. So it's not that it increases your body's production of insulin, because it doesn't. Glucagon actually suppresses insulin production, which is why if you pull insulin on people who are on semaglutide, you'll see the insulin levels have dropped substantially. It's also what the physiology shows. Just as the glycolytic process of production of insulin, production of glucagon, as the sugars fall, production of insulin decreases and the production of glucagon increases. And as the amount of sugars in the blood start to increase, the body stops producing as much glucagon and starts producing insulin. So if we force produce giant quantities of glucagon, it's just going to naturally inhibit that cycle of production of insulin versus glucagon. And so it's not going to produce anything. It's not going to produce glucagon or insulin. And so without the insulin, you're not going to have the sugars being moved around. It's just going to stay as a constant, steady state in the body, which is also why people who are taking semaglutide, we don't see sugar loss. We don't see giant dips in sugar levels, glucose levels in the blood, because your body is making it again for you. So this whole process initiates and maintains gluconeogenesis, and it also the process of dropping the fat, the sugar out of your liver into everything else. So that's the big process that we're working through. So if that's actually the case, then this would be a phenomenal way to not only treat but eradicate diabetes if it was done right. Now, the other thing you have to remember on this one is that your body is burning fat. It utilizes, the way it burns through fat is that it uses chemicals from the liver, bile salts, to break these down. Now, if people have lost methylated B6, they're not going to be able to break down fat. They're not going to be able to utilize that system. And so we're going to end up with lots and lots and lots of liver stones, which are commonly known as gallstones. So that's going to give you your issues with the gallstone issues. It's going to give you all the liver issues that we're seeing. It can also start blocking the pancreatic ducts. I've seen that several times. Liver stones, bile stones, we'll call them that. Bile stones will end up blocking the pancreatic ducts in the pancreas, causing pancreatitis. We've seen that several times. And so that's where a lot of this stuff is happening. So it's not that the semaglutide is affecting the pancreas. The semaglutide is basically just telling the body to do what it normally does. Glucagon's a natural, normal function. The problem is that we're way overdosing these people, and then we're putting that into a system that's not ready for it. So if you're worried about and we talked about this before, but the way that you obviously battle the issue with the muscle wasting, or the muscle being eaten for this process, is you increase the testosterone, so the healing and regeneration factor is higher, and then you increase the collagen function or the protein intake. Collagen's gonna be a little bit better because, again, if we're shutting down functionality in the stomach and the gut, we're gonna need to have the easiest, most easily absorbed protein function available. It's gonna be able to drop then those amino acids in the system so the body can heal, regenerate, repair, and go through gluconeogenesis. So yeah, I would make sure that when we're talking about collagen, and I don't understand how they're doing it, why they're doing it. The pure protein stuff that Breck is pushing, their whole claim is that it will not go through gluconeogenesis. It will not become sugar, which makes it the absolute worst possible thing you can put in your body, because it will then lead to your body tearing apart your muscle tissues to create the sugar. So I'm not familiar with what they're doing or why they're doing it this way, because their whole premise is against physiology function. So if you guys are using the pure protein for the breakfast pushing, those pure aminos, I would stop using those if you guys are going to be using it for muscle creation, if you're taking it before you work out to prevent muscle wasting, or if you're on semaglutide or Ozempic or Wegovy or any of these sort of things. So do not take that one, because their whole claim is that it will not go through gluconeogenesis and it will not become sugar. It's hypercritical that it becomes sugar, that proteins become sugar for this process and for your health and for your brain and for your blood. So I don't know what their deal is. If you're using it for something else, it's fine. But if you're worried about muscle loss, muscle wasting, or you're trying to maintain muscle density while on something like this, do not take anything that's specific claim is that it will not turn to sugar, because it's hypercritical that you get the body to have it turn to sugar for this purpose. So if you're on semaglutide, that's the thing, radically increase your collagen intake, make sure your testosterone is where it's supposed to be, and start eating more fat and more protein, because your body is using fat and protein now instead of sugars, which is kind of ironic, because had you just done that beforehand, you would have fixed the problem to begin with, which I know that's not your fault. They didn't tell you that because they want you to be diabetic. But that's kind of how this whole process is working. So if you Google it, if you look it up, it says it increases insulin production and insulin ability. I don't think that's what's actually going on. Again, because the main problem with diabetics is insulin resistance. It's not that they can't produce insulin. Lots of them can produce tons of insulin. It's their body's just not listening to the signal the insulin hormone is giving them. In this case, the semaglutide is basically what it's doing is it's completely shutting down the sugar system, and it's bringing on the fat burning system, because that's how we produce ATP. ATP is the actual chemical we work with. Again, this is one of those massive reasons why it's super important that we understand that our body runs on chemicals, not on calories, because again, the calories thing is going to confuse you to actually what's going on in your body. It's going to confuse you how the body actually works. It's going to lead you to believe things that like proteins and sugars are equal, and they're not in any way equal, because sugars increase insulin production, proteins and amino acids increase glucagon production. Glucagon is the way that we're actually fixing the diabetes issue, which is insulin resistance. So if you guys are on it, again, get your testosterone levels up, men and women. Get your protein intake, your collagen intake up, and watch your dose. If you guys are eating stuff and you feel full for hours, you're probably getting overdosed. I would tell you to talk to your doctor. Hopefully they understand that. But the ones I've talked to have no idea about physiological function of digestion. So sorry. But that's kind of where we're at. I just wanted to make sure we threw that one out, because if we're worried about that or we're looking into that, that's some research I'd like to see done, is the absorption function of the carbohydrates while on semaglutide. We don't have that research. It's just one of those things that I'm seeing that doesn't make any sense to me the way they're portraying it. So if you guys are worried about that or thinking about that, roll that around in your head. Thanks for your time.